All right, the Penn State Blitz here on PennLive has returned. Greg Pickle.
Bob?
We had a lot to get to.
We
We were not around last week, couldn't get to it, so now we have a lot to get to with our 4 downs.
Yes.
Talking a little bit about signing day and some other things. Don't want to tip our hands. Before we get to that, Greg, though, just remember, you gotta subscribe to this YouTube account, youtube.com / all Penn State, the PennLive Penn State football channel.
Exactly.
All things Penn State.
Yep.
So, Greg, National Signing Day finally.
In the
It
books.
feels like it was like 4 months long. It actually was a lot longer than anyone's ever been used to. It's
Right.
finally done.
Yes.
They finally wrapped up the class. They got the guy they wanted at the last minute, the big offensive tackle, Rasheed Walker from Maryland, beat out Ohio State, Virginia Tech.
Yep.
Great way to cap the class. A lot of people feel like it's a top 5 class. What just kind of strikes you the most about James Franklin and his assistants, their ability to close the deal, and just your thoughts on Rasheed Walker?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to me, Bob, is that this is a program that went through how many coaching changes?
Yeah.
Charles Huff, Joe Moorhead, Josh Gaddis. It didn't really lose anyone. Now,
Right.
granted, Gaddis left at a time when the kids that were already signed were
Right.
already signed and they didn't have a choice. But and I don't think his recruitment of Rasheed Walker, I don't think he had a big role in that. So maybe he doesn't play a big role in it. But throughout the course of all these changes and the fact that they didn't have a running backs coach when Ricky Slade signed,
Right.
all these different things, they never really had any hiccups along the way. Sure, there were guys that they wanted. There were guys that had off-field issues that took them out of the class. There's guys like Solomon Enos who did not end up picking Penn State. You know, it wasn't all, roses for Penn State between December and February when this class really, got started officially signing and ended signing just last week. But for the most part, to me, Bob, I just think that when you look at what James Franklin has done, he's steadily grown the type of player that is in this class in terms of numbers. It's not just 1 or 2 highly rated guys and then guys that are a little bit down the totem pole. Now it's flipped, where it's guys that are mostly at the top of the totem pole at their position and also across the country, mixed in with some other guys that the program likes that maybe the recruiting services don't as much. So I just think you've seen this constant change from Franklin over the time that he's been here. And beyond that, the other thing that strikes me when you talk about Rasheed Walker, he's a guy that could be the left tackle of the future. I know Penn State fans might be a little bit jaded because they've heard this before about guys that Penn State has signed that hasn't necessarily got to that point yet.
I'm not going to mention any names.
No, but I think Ryan Bates is a good example of the kind of path that Rasheed Walker could follow. He's going to come in June and quickly, make himself a name, I think. I think he's a guy that you'll hear talked about in a way sort of what Mike Miranda was like, where he, and obviously he had a head start that Rasheed Walker won't have, but he's a guy that they said put on enough weight, and they thought about really playing him this past year. Obviously, they decided to redshirt him. I think they do the same with Walker, but he's a guy that has every opportunity to really rise the ladder quickly. That's why Penn State and Ohio State went nose to the end for him.
Yeah, and just what the addition of Walker as the last guy, what is it do to the entire offensive line class? Because it was pretty good before they got him, and I think I think the coaches, a lot of people I talk to, they feel like all 4 of these guys could be a big part of the future, not necessarily maybe in 2018, but 19, 20, 21.
Yeah, you run down the list. Nana Sidhu is the guy that they figure can be a tackle very much like Walker. He's the North Stafford 4-star offensive lineman that really has just scratched the surface, Bob. He hasn't been playing football all that long. His high school coach got him to play football along with his passion at one point, which was basketball. They obviously quickly realized how good of a football player he was. Penn State probably needs a year to get him ready, but they think he can contribute soon. The other guy that, moving inside then, you're talking about Bryce Effner. He might be able to play both. James Franklin hinted at the fact that he was a swing guy. Illinois 3-star, so we'll wait and see about him. Penn State loved him at camp, though. He went up a lot. He went up against Jason Oweh, the defensive end signee who signed in December, announced in January. Those two went at it all night at the camp. It was actually unfair because there were a couple really good defensive linemen there, and Bryce Effner was tasked with going against all of them. And nobody should ever have to go through that, but he held his own. And then the final one is the PA kid, Juice Scruggs from Erie Cathedral Prep. Could be a guard. It sounds like they're going to try him at center. That's the first thing out of what James Franklin said. So to me, Bob, this is easily the best offensive line class that they've signed so far under the Franklin era.
Yeah, and just to watch, James Franklin stresses this. Whoever they recruit, the idea is most of them are going to be able to play more than one position. Right. He stresses athleticism. He stresses versatility, and he wants this line to get a little bit nastier. He thinks it's important, especially in the Big Ten East.
Yep.
Some of these guys, Rasheed Walker is one of them. C.J. Thorpe is another. They have some guys who are not afraid to get after it, and it's only a matter of time before they ascend to the starting lineup. It might not be right away, but it should be really interesting to see what this offensive line can do for years to come, because they've recruited so well. They have a lot of young players that they like, so they have depth now, which is something they did not have in 2014. And they are getting to the point, Greg, where I think they have legit too deep.
Right.
And that's just something, it's taken them 3-4 years to do it. And now we'll just see who the surprises are in spring and summer. Let's get to second down, though. That was a lot.
That was a lot.
That was a lot about Rasheed Walker. Not that he didn't deserve it. But we want to talk about the January enrollees, the true freshmen that are already engaged in some vigorous winter conditioning.
Yes.
Micah Parsons is one of them, and he is, he's kind of been out there on social media saying it's been a little bit of a struggle, a little bit of an adjustment, but it always is.
Right.
Because no one's really ready for what the strength and conditioning staff is going to put these guys through. They never really experienced anything like it in high school. But Penn State kind of updated its roster a little bit. First, let's just get to the true freshman heights and weights, anything that jumped out to you, and also the numbers. There's one very interesting number.
There is.
LeVar Arrington actually weighed in on this, and it involves Micah Parsons.
Yeah, number 11. LeVar Arrington, by the way, out of news that just came out yesterday, took his first high school head coaching job at a place in California. So he's actually going to get it back on the sideline. But, number 11, him and Micah Parsons and LeVar Arrington were discussing, because Micah wanted to wear 23, which is what he wore in high school at Harrisburg. And they were talking about the fact Aaron Monroe, of course, has number 23. And LeVar said, well, if you want to continue the number 11 linebacker youth tradition, go ahead. So that's what he decided to do. Obviously, it's a big shoes to fill. There's no question about that. But I think Mike has embraced a lot of things so far throughout his football career and his recruitment, and this is just one more thing to do. So it'll be interesting. But, yeah, his number was notable. I thought the fact that Isaiah Humphries was one that jumped off the page to me too, Bob. 190 pounds. He's not too far away from about the 200 mark where you see your safeties at these days. I wonder if he won't have a chance to jump into this conversation to play as a true freshman. Obviously, something we'll get to a little bit later will impact the things at the safety position as well. But Zack Kuntz, I thought it was interesting that James Franklin made note of the fact that he was stronger than they thought he was going to be. And Zack was very upfront about the fact that he knew that he had to get to campus and put weight on. Seems like he did a pretty good job of that before he even got there.
Yeah. A couple things. Tarburton weighs 260.
Yeah.
I think.
Down.
I was gonna say. I'm not saying the guy. I'm sure the guy is a big guy, but it's tough to play linebacker. And they want speed on the field at 260. Let's just see at the end of spring, kind of what he looks like, and also let's not forget about Navarro Bowman in number 11.
Right.
Let's not forget about him. LeVar is the guy that obviously wore it the best and is the most well-known one. But Navarro switched from 18 to 11,
right? And
he delivered on. He backed it up.
Right.
He was a very good player, especially his last couple of years there. He was 11. Brent Wilkerson didn't work out.
Brandon Bell though. He wore 11 for a little bit.
Brandon Bell wore 11. So what does LeVar say? Double sticks?
Yeah, Stick City.
Stick City. Right. So let's see if Micah is up to the challenge. I think athletically he sure looks like he is, but it's always a good sign when somebody's not afraid to step into the out of the shadows and embrace a number like 11. It's one of the great numbers, I think, in Penn State history. We'll see how he does. Third down involves Lamont Wade, who is no longer a true freshman.
Right.
He is a second-year sophomore, played in 2017. Top player in the state, many thought, when he came out and Penn State got him. Was a corner, but lo and behold, at least for the spring, they're going to look at him at safety. I think it's pretty significant. You could go a lot of different ways with why they did this. What are your initial thoughts on Lamont Wade and the safety position?
Yeah, I read your thoughts this morning. Two of the things that really jumped out to me as potentials for this is, number one, they just don't feel that great about the guys that are currently there competing for this job. I think Nick Scott probably has a leg up at this point. But Nick Scott, Aaron Monroe, John Patrician, Garrett Taylor, these guys have all had chances to get on the field, and Bob, we just haven't seen a whole lot of them. Special teams, Aaron Monroe, I know, has had some issues staying healthy, but Troy Apke won that job pretty convincingly. He never gave it back, and I thought actually played quite well for the most part in 2017. So it's interesting to me that Penn State makes a move now. It just makes you wonder, A, if they just don't feel good about their options, and B, as it relates to corner, what does that mean for Tariq Castro-Fields? It kind of makes you wonder if he wasn't a little bit of a step ahead from where Lamont Wade was. So Penn State thought, okay, we'll leave him there to get most of those nickel reps, and we'll try Lamont at safety. He has the ball. Well, I mean, who's the last Penn State safety that conceivably has the ball skills that Lamont Wade has?
Right.
There probably aren't too many of them. So I think for those two reasons, the move probably made sense.
Yeah, I think another safety, Jonathan Sutherland, maybe maybe a guy that can make a leap here in spring and summer. He redshirted last year. I think Marcus Allen and some of the receivers really noticed him on the practice field. He's a guy to watch at safety. I just think that when James Franklin and Matt Limegrover talk about getting their best 5 on the field as far as offensive linemen, I think the goal is the same everywhere. You want to get your best 4 in the secondary, and really your best 5 because of the way they use the 4-2-5 alignment. Lamont Wade can play slot corner. He's a physical player, plays bigger than his size. Yeah. He can run. I just think he is really versatile. I do agree with you. He doesn't really have the length they really kind of covet now on the outside. Amani Araware's got it.
Good.
Christian Campbell's got it. But I think if you were going to move one player from the corner group, if you were going to move one player from the corner to the safety spot because of his aggressive play, you kind of could see it not only when he was in the game at defensive back, but on special teams. Very physical player. He kind of fits that bill. Marcus Allen's leaving. Yeah. He's not as tall as Marcus, but Marcus was a physical player, and I do think they're looking for somebody to kind of jumpstart the group there at the safety spot. Monroe is a guy that I think we've liked for a while, but he still hasn't gotten on the field.
Right.
Nick Scott's entering his final season. He's obviously a very good athlete, but he began his career as a running back. So I think this really kind of strengthens the safety group. And with the way that they play their players, I mean, Lamont can help them in so many different ways if he can stay healthy. I think he was the right guy to move.
Yep.
And it was for need, but it was also, I think you want to get Lamont on the field.
Right.
And this was the way to do it. So we'll see. But I thought it was an interesting move. James didn't talk about it 2 days earlier, naturally.
Right.
But we finally found it out, and now he's going to be getting asked a lot about it during spring. 4th down, let's talk about some guys that are no longer going to be on the Penn State team in 2018. They're the combine guys. And there's a bunch of them, 7 or 8. I think it's 8.
8, yep.
And that's a huge number. Obviously, Saquon Barkley, Mike Gesicki, Marcus Allen, Christian Campbell are probably the 4 that really jump out. Deshaun Hamilton earned it with his performances in the East-West Shrine Game and the Senior Bowl. But Troy Apke, I just think it's a great compliment to him, the strides he was able to make in a really short time to get that combine invite. It's going to be fun to watch these guys, and I wonder if Troy Apke can even take maybe another step in the right direction, maybe get drafted.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't necessarily see him showing up to the NFLPA Bowl and earning its MVP honors, but he played terrific in that game. His stats were very good, and look, I know stats aren't the end-all, be-all in these all-star games, but he had a good week of practice, too, and you just wonder maybe if he's going to showcase a little bit more than he did at Penn State, which isn't to say he didn't showcase a lot, but the way that Penn State's defense is played, and then especially with how quarterback challenged the Big Ten is, you don't necessarily get a chance, I think, to show all of what you can do as a safety. Now, granted, everyone had a tough time against Ohio State and at Michigan State when it came to getting stops late, but I think that this shows the kind of progress he's been able to make. I wasn't terribly surprised by any of the snubs, I guess you could say, either. The guys that weren't invited. I'm not sure about you, but the list seemed to pretty much make sense.
Yeah, the only thing I would say, and there's a Penn State tie, is I think Adam Breneman should have been at the combine, especially after the year that he had. He's got a medical issue, the knee that he hurt at Penn State. I'm sure will get checked very thoroughly, but the year that he had, that kind of surprised me, since he has Penn State ties, thought we would mention him. Hopefully things work out for him.
Yep.
But those are 4 downs. They just flew by.
They did.
And are there any comments we're going to get to? Do you have any questions? Do you want to try and stump me with a trivia question? What do you have up your sleeve, Pickle?
Well, because it's a common theme here on the Blitz, somebody would like to know about Tommy Stevens' situation. If there's any updates. I mean, to me, Bob, again, we say it every week, but it's not going to change until the spring.
Absolutely, he's gonna go through, I think, with spring practice, and then once he graduates, then my understanding is that if he wants to transfer, he can transfer elsewhere and play right. It's not as easy as it sounds.
No, it's not. Yeah.
The assumption I think that Penn State fans make, and I think it's a little bit skewed, is he can just step in to a major college program and just beat out the competition.
Right.
And there's a lot that goes with that. Yeah. It's rare when it happens. Jake Ruddock was able to do it at Michigan.
Yep.
Russell Wilson made the transition from North Carolina State, to Wisconsin.
Right.
Those are the stories you know about. Russell Wilson, dual threat quarterback. I think that Tommy is probably still thinking about this. I don't think he's really made up his mind what he wants to do. I don't blame him for being frustrated, but I do think there is a selling point to be made there that I do think Penn State does intend to play him a lot, and he can really help this offense, especially A, in the red zone, and B, with them, they're hurting at tight end, and they need a big option they could kind of trust and that could kind of impact the game. I know that Tommy wants to play quarterback. I know that he would play it well, but I don't think we're going to know the answer to this question, I think, till after the spring game. And I think that James Franklin and his offensive coaches have to kind of make sure that he is kind of looped in, and I would not sleep on the possibility that he would strongly consider making a move, but I don't know what it is right now. I don't know if he's 50-50, 60-40, but I think it's a definite possibility.
Yeah, I completely agree. All right, last one, Bob. Tell it like it is, please. We're looking at the opportunity at the safety spot, and this came from YouTube, but someone's curious. So is it Lamont Wade and Nick Scott, or what do you think? I mean, where do you think things, if you had to peg the starting safety spot right now, where do you think it's at? And who, obviously, you mentioned the guy in Jonathan Sutherland. I think Tim Banks called him Mini Marcus in terms of the way he hits people. Yeah. It's fascinating because Penn State's had this, obviously Marcus Allen's been locked into a spot for, 3.5 years now. Yeah. Malik Golden was always right there beside him. Troy Apke was a logical candidate. And now the slate is completely bare. I also thought it was good news to see John Reed back in action at workouts.
Absolutely.
But as it relates to the safeties, what do you think?
From an athletic standpoint and an aggressive standpoint, I think Lamont Wade, if he continues to develop and he takes to the safety spot, I think he's going to be one of the starters. My guess would be that Nick Scott is probably going to be the other guy. He's another very athletic guy.
Is he the Marcus Allen type to play more in the box, you think?
I think we'll go the other way. I think that even though Lamont is not the biggest guy, I think it's a mistake to look at him and assume that he cannot impact the running game and be a factor in run support. I just like his versatility.
Yeah, sure.
The fact that he can kick inside to play corner. He doesn't maybe have to come off the field if they want to go to the 4-2-5. He can do both. But it's a good problem to have. I think the two people you have to watch very closely at the safety position this spring are Lamont Wade and Sutherland. I think those are the guys. Yeah. And I think Penn State's coaching staff kind of knows what they have in Nick Scott. I'm not sure they know what they have in Aaron Monroe. But I do think Lamont Wade, if he could take a step forward, is going to be a guy that's going to be on the field a lot. All
right. You want to hit us with that YouTube thing before we get on out of here?
Well, thank you, Greg. I think I will. That's been another edition of the Penn State Blitz here on PennLive. Just remember, you got to subscribe to this channel, youtube.com/allpennstate. We will see you guys hopefully sooner rather than later.